Well, here we are. Let me tell you what an amazing journey it has been. It all started back in December of 2017. I had just moved in with my then boyfriend and I felt a creative surge from the new environment. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life in terms of career or anything else, to be honest, but I knew that I felt inspired. And that was enough for the moment. So I sat down in the kitchen one day and began the first draft of what would later become Leaves of Holly. And it was absolutely terrible. I remember doing several rewrites of the outline, and there was very little kept from the first draft, but you know, that's just the process. Little did I know back then that I would be working on this story continuously for 8 years. Leaves of Holly, of course, took the longest, as that was published in 2021. In some ways, that manuscript was almost overworked, or at least in danger of becoming overworked. I remember being so scared of missing some important plot hole or making some other embarrassing mistake that I hired 2 editors and enlisted about 10 beta readers, meaning there were a lot of varying opinions that I had to take into consideration. The feedback from the beta readers alone was like over 100 pages. But I eventually ended up with a finished product that I was very proud of. And still am, of course, even though I hate reading passages from it now, as my writing has evolved and I would just want to change things if I opened it up now. So I won't do that. I feel like it's similar to when actors hate seeing themselves in films or shows because they become overly critical of themselves. And I am indeed overly critical of myself. It's not really a problem during the writing itself because I'm so immersed in the world and the setting of it, and the whole point of that stage is to craft and polish it to the best of my ability, so you have to be critical. But once it's out and a good chunk of time has passed, I just hate looking at it. There's no other way to describe it. Anyway, Leaves of Holly came out in May 2021, and then I threw myself into writing Book 2, Garden of Silver, pretty much immediately. Out of all 3, this one is my darling. It's my favorite. I fell in love with this part of the story and loved writing and editing it all the way to the end. I suppose that's quite unusual, as the middle book often isn't as good as the first or last ones. Or at least that is a common opinion among readers in general. But in my view, the middle book is often where you get to explore deeper into character motivations and such, instead of heavily focusing on introducing or ending a story. So I often find myself enjoying those a little more, but it all depends on what part of a story moves you the most. That is what makes fiction so beautiful, after all, that it's subjective. Oh. Leaving? Oh. So Garden of Silver was then published exactly 2 years after Leaves of Holly in 2023. Quite smooth and satisfying, I must say. Although, if you go back in time to 2023, I'm sure I would have told you that the process was anything but smooth. So I was foolish enough to think that the second time around would be much easier. And I was in for a rude awakening. Very stressful, to say the least. And hopefully I will remember some of these insights when it's time to release Book 3.
when it's time to release book 3.
But then I was faced with a challenge I did not expect. You see, while finishing Leaves of Holly, I also wrote a detailed outline for both Garden of Silver and Fortress of Ice, to make sure that the story fit together as a whole and stayed consistent. And when I started writing Fortress of Ice, I realized that it wasn't good enough. There just wasn't enough intrigue or excitement. It was hollow, quite frankly. So I began the work of restructuring the entire outline while still keeping Garden of Silver in mind to make sure I didn't accidentally add any inconsistencies or continuity errors. It was anything but easy, which is also why this one took a little longer to finish than the others. But I got there eventually. Even though there are some plot points and decisions in there that readers will either love or hate. Which is also the case for Garden of Silver, to be fair. But that's just how it goes. It wouldn't feel right to me to only take the safest option when writing a story. Not that I feel like I had much control of it, to be honest. Once the characters come alive, they are the ones pushing the story forward. I'm just a passenger. So if you don't like something in there, don't blame me, blame them. So yeah, now book 3 is finally out and the story is officially finished. It's just over. I've grown so used to working on this over the years that it will be an adjustment for sure to not have to have this in the back of my mind, like all the time. Truthfully, I did get quite emotional when the first printed copies of Fortress of Ice arrived, and I could place it next to books 1 and 2 for the first time. It's hard to explain, but there was just a feeling of excitement mixed with nostalgia, nervousness, and sadness. Because I am sad to leave these characters behind me. I've grown quite fond of them at this point. Yes, even the rude and annoying ones. So without further ado, here they are, the full Leaves of Holly trilogy together as one finished series. Aren't they so pretty? I'm honestly so in love with the design theme for the covers. It just fits the story perfectly for all 3 of them. Like if we look at book 1, it has a sage green color, which is perfect as it's set in the summertime. It also has some willow leaves and crystals here and cherry blossoms on the cover, all of which are quite significant for the story. And when we look at book 2, the color is a dark turquoise, which I absolutely adore. This part of the story is set in autumn, but it also takes place partly in a warmer climate. No spoilers here, but again, the color is very well suited. And on the cover, we also have an increased amount of cherry blossoms, as you can see here, and a fruit tree in the center, and some fairies at the top. And finally, we have book 3 with an even darker slate grey color. This one is set in winter, no surprises there. And here we have some snowflakes, mountains, and a crown at the very top. We've also deviated from the soft, swirly corner frames here from books 1 and 2, and now we have some crystals here as well, which is also significant. Overall, the cover designs are purposeful, which was very important to me. You know, the whole don't judge a book by its cover. It is a blatant lie. Literally everyone does. And I'm so glad that I managed to get the same cover designer for all 3 books, because from the second book onward, I had to book her like a year in advance, which wasn't an easy feat with the timing and all that. She goes by the name Miss Natmac, and I would highly recommend her. So yeah, after that 8-year-long journey, the trilogy is complete, and Fortress of Ice is now available as paperback and ebook as well. If any one of you has read book 1 or 2 already, or are just interested in checking them out, may I kindly request that you leave a review afterwards. It doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be 5 stars, and if you're not comfortable writing something, then a rating only is fine as well. Because, as we always say, if you buy the book, you help the author today. If you review the book, you help the author for every day to come. Yes, it really is that important. In particular on platforms like Amazon and Goodreads, which is pretty much the 2 biggest places where people go to browse books. So now that I've bored you with that knowledge, let me just finish by saying thank you so much for listening to me ramble about my author journey. I appreciate all the support I get, whether it is through liking my video or subscribing to my channel or buying my books or recommending them. It all just means the world to me, so thank you so much. With that said, it is time for me to start working on the next project. So yeah, wishing you all a wonderful day, evening or night, wherever you are in the world, and I hope to see you back in my next video.